So, how to find uncrowded camping spots. This is a video making based on a viewer question a little while ago in the comments on a video. So I had it queued up for a while, finally getting around to making it. It's not a full how-to tutorial on finding campsites and stuff. The focus on this video is on finding uncrowded camping spots. Well, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos about this kind of topic and about apps and other tools I use to find campsites in general. And I'll see about making some more videos like that. I want to mention real quick too, Bob Wells over at Cheap RV Living just put up a new video today, Wednesday, April 13, as I'm recording this, and covering how he uses the U.S. Public Lands app to find boondocking spots. So if you want more details about the U.S. Public Lands app, you may want to check out that video. I'll have a link to that in the description down below. And if you're interested in this sort of stuff, you may enjoy this little book that we put together a little while ago, the Meanderings Magazine Short Story Collection, Volume 1. This features, I think, six short stories, original short stories that were in Meanderings Magazine and not available anywhere else other than Meanderings Magazine, but they are available in this little book. You can get it on Amazon in Kindle or paperback, whichever you prefer. So I'll have a link to that in the video description below if you want to check it out. Alright, so let's talk about how to find uncrowded camping spots. I've got a number of tips that are based on my experience with, and I always try to find uncrowded camping spots. So that's definitely something I've been practicing over in my 7th year on the road now full time. So first up, local knowledge helps. Obviously, this is not always an option, but it's great when it is. So there are areas where I travel that I have enough local knowledge. I've been there enough times, or spent enough time in the area that it's fairly easy for me to find an uncrowded camping spot because I know where the camping is and where it's likely to be crowded, where it's likely to not be crowded. So local knowledge helps. Sometimes you can supplement that by talking to local residents. Now this is hit and miss. They may or may not want to share. Sometimes local people have a negative opinion about campers and travelers coming through their town if they've had bad experiences, but other times they can be surprisingly helpful and with sharing some local knowledge. And the other challenge is that even if they're friendly and helpful and willing to share what they know about the area, they may not really understand what makes a good camping spot. So you got to take it with a grain of salt, but sometimes that can be a great resource. Secondly, don't rely on campsite directories or apps. Now, this is a great way to find campsites, but if you're trying to find an uncrowded campsite, is not usually the best approach. If you're reading about a campsite on a publicly available directory online, so are thousands of other people, and some of them are going to be going there probably at the same time you want to go there. And if you do want to use campsite directories, consider the next few suggestions when doing so, because it'll help you with the whole uncrowded part. Consider less popular areas. Popular, well-known areas will almost always be more crowded than less popular areas. So an example, Quartzsite and Lake Havasu City in Arizona are always more crowded during winter than many of the surrounding areas because they're popular and they're well-known and that's where everybody goes. But if you get a little ways out, you can find areas with a lot fewer people. And that's true pretty much everywhere. The more popular an area is, the more well-known it is, the more likely it is the camping in that area is going to be crowded as well. Avoid population centers. The closer an area is to a city or a big tourist attraction, the more likely it is that camping spots will also be crowded. The further you travel from a population center or a tourist attraction, the more likely it will be uncrowded. Local residents are going to camp fairly close to town if they're going camping, and other people who are visiting there are likely to want to camp as close as possible as well. Next, consider visiting more popular areas during the off-season. So if you really want to go to a popular place, consider going to the off-season. A lot of times that means camping in places or at times that most people consider it too hot or too cold, for example. But if you're going when it's not so popular, there's just a lot fewer people and you'll have a better chance of finding a spot that's not crowded. So an example of this, Quartzsite, Arizona, when it's too hot, it's mostly deserted for much of the year. Winter, it's crazy. Like, usually starting around Thanksgiving up to the end of February, it's pretty busy. You can still, if you hunt, you can find and you're willing to put in the work to do it. You can find some places that aren't too crowded, but there's a lot of people there. And if you go when it's hotter, if you can tolerate the heat, I have friends who do exactly that. There's nobody there. You have your choice of camp spots because it's not the main season. It's just not crowded. One warning with off-season stuff, though, you do have to be aware of the environment. So watch out for snow and ice and mud and flash floods and extreme heat and so on. So just make sure you either know what you can expect there or do your research to know what to expect. So my first full year on the road, we ended up stranded for a while outside of Flagstaff up on a mountain because the monsoon season came in and yeah, it rained and rained and rained for days on end, and those forest roads were a swamp. I mean, there was no getting out. So just be aware of some of the things that can occur during the off season as far as the weather and other situations. All right, so next, decide what you want to find before you start researching. So basically, what I mean by that is what features are important to you besides being uncrowded. Maybe that's the only thing you care about, and that's fine if so, but a lot of times you may have other preferences too, like cell coverage, or maybe you want to camp near water, like lake or river or whatever. Do you want wide open spaces for views, or maybe trees and hills for privacy? But decide what you're looking for, and then focus on the places that are likely to have the features you desire and your uncrowded camp spot. And then it's time to conduct research. This may include paper maps or apps and websites. I do carry, despite the fact I use digital stuff a lot, I carry a road atlas. This is really helpful when I'm trying to do some preliminary research. You got the big whole U.S. page, but also, when you start drilling down into like Nevada, there's Nevada on this page, and sometimes you can see details. You get the bigger picture while still getting some details that are hard to pull off with a digital map. With a digital map, a lot of times you don't see the details till you're zoomed way in. This atlas actually was also very helpful to me. 2 summers ago, I was in Oregon, and I'd loaded my trip itinerary and list of places I wanted to visit into Google Maps, and I did have a Garmin GPS on the dash or on the windshield, but I didn't know the area, so I'm sitting there, and then I had no cell service, and Google Maps wouldn't reload, and I didn't know where I wanted to go next. I knew I didn't want to go back where I was. I'd just driven like 2 hours to get to some cool waterfalls, but I didn't want to go back where I had been. I had some other places I wanted to visit, and I had no idea where I was really. I was in a part of Oregon I'd never been to before and wasn't familiar with. So using the paper map allowed me to orient myself, and then I could use the Garmin to tell it where I wanted to go. So that helped out a lot. So 7 years ago, whatever it was when I was starting this, the benchmark and DeLorme atlases were a big deal, and everybody used them. This is the only one I have still these days is for Arizona, and I use them a lot less than I used to because of digital mapping and GPS stuff has come so far. But there's some great stuff in here. You start with a page that has shows you the whole Southwest, but these maps highlight public lands and stuff. So, and they also are very detailed. So they're almost, you have to jump back and forth sometimes between the big view and the page view, the zoomed in view, but you get a lot of detail, and they'll show public land areas along with Forest Service and BLM roads, which is really helpful because you need a road to get places. So other than paper maps, and I guess that's sometimes it's a good backup always. It can be very helpful too to get that big picture before you start drilling in for more detail on apps or web-based maps. A couple of the apps I use all the time, U.S. Public Lands, which I mentioned earlier, and also Gaia GPS is the one I use a lot these days. There are several good GPS apps out there. I do have the paid version of Gaia GPS, so it allows me to download maps ahead of time for use offline, and then the GPS on the phone works regardless of whether I have a signal or not. So I'm able to pinpoint my location and zoom around and see other features, and I give different layers I can use, like terrain and elevation and all kinds of things, satellite view, all that stuff. So very helpful when I'm in an area and trying to figure out where I'm at and where I might want to go explore more. And while you're conducting research, I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, but look for public land areas with road access. And you'll hear people sometimes tell you can camp on any public land, blah, 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 and good luck with that. First of all, it's not always allowed, but there also are many places where there may be public lands, but they're landlocked, and you can't get to them because there's no road, there's no access. And it happens a lot with BLM, for example. So you look for the ones that have road access on either your paper map, like your Benchmark or DeLorme Atlas, or on your app or web-based map, and look for places where you can find public lands and you have roads to get in there. And then what I like to do is use a satellite view map to see terrain and other features. And you can do this with Google Maps satellite view, or I do it with Gaia GPS and some other apps as well. Public lands, U.S. public lands as well. You can put a satellite view on, and that lets you get a better picture from the sky of what the ground looks like. Is it wide open space? Is it heavily forested? Is there water features there? What does the road look like? Does it look like there's pull-offs off the road where you can actually camp? Sometimes you can see an RV or a van or something, or tent, where you can see that people have been camping there. So the satellite view is a great tool to after you've kind of got an idea on the area, to get a better picture of what it might look like on the ground. And next, be prepared to explore. I sometimes laugh. People ask me, "Oh, how did you find that awesome camp spot you were at?" And the short answer is half a day and half a tank of gas. That's just what happens. Sometimes you got to do that. So it often takes hours and many gallons of gas to find a great campsite. Sometimes you don't even have to do research. You just go explore. I like to go explore, and sometimes I found great campsites doing that. But even if you've done all this research, when you get there, you're still going to look around. And sometimes you find a great spot right away, but other times it takes a lot of driving around, and maybe there weren't spots where you thought there were going to be, or they're already all full. So you have to go explore more, or it just wasn't what you were looking for. When you arrive, you realize, yeah, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. So you have to go explore more to find something. So while you're exploring, take the road less traveled. So disclaimer here, how less traveled of a road you can take depends on how capable your vehicle is and on your skills with driving in primitive road conditions. So don't get yourself in trouble, but take the road less traveled. Most people are going to camp near main roads, and they just take the first spot and camp near a main road, and that's that, or easy to access place. So taking several different spur roads that go off and get smaller and smaller as they go, you're getting further away, and it's more work, and most people won't do that. And again, if you have a capable vehicle and some off-road driving skills, you can get on some roads that are really rough. And again, you're eliminating most people just because their cars or RVs or whatever won't go, or their truck with a trailer maybe won't go. So if you've got a capable vehicle and off-road driving skills, you can get to the more difficult places to access, and that eliminates most of the competition for any campsites that are up there. And speaking of exploring, and I've been talking primarily about boondocking here, but I found some great little city and county parks that were not crowded at all. They may or may not be on the internet, but they're usually in kind of out-of-the-way places, rural towns in the middle of nowhere, and they'll often have a park and some that, in many cases, they'll allow camping at. I've also found them that are not on the internet just by exploring. So a lot of times when I'm traveling, I like to get off the beaten path and go take back roads. And as I pass through some small towns, you'll see a sign for a city park or something, or a county park, and just take the moment and pull in and see what it's about, what's there. And sometimes you'll find that there's camping, either sometimes free and sometimes just very inexpensive. And sometimes they're crowded, and other times they're deserted and nobody's there. I did that several times heading south from Wyoming down to Texas last year, for example. And the year before that, when I was traveling east to west from Wyoming to upstate New York, I found several in like South Dakota and Iowa that were like that. So that's another great option that sometimes works really well. So, final tip, do not share your uncrowded camping spot online if you actually want it to remain uncrowded. Every single time in the years I've been doing this, every single time I've seen a one great spot listed online, it is overcrowded and trashed within a year or two. It doesn't fail. So many times I've seen this. So, when you put it online, everybody knows about it, and there's going to be a lot of people going there, and a certain percentage of them are not going to care to maintain our public lands, and they're going to destroy it. So if you want to keep a great spot, great, don't tell people about it. I only share sites that are already publicly listed, is my philosophy. If it's already on Campendium or freecampsites.net or whatever, then yes, I'll share exactly where I'm at after I've left. But other than that, I'm not putting it on the internet if it's not already on the internet, because it's going to be overcrowded and trashed, and I won't be able to go back to it again. Okay, so I hope those tips were helpful if you want to find uncrowded camping spots. Again, we got this little book, Meanderings Magazine short story collection, 6 original travel-themed short stories by Deborah Dickinson. Check it out with a link in the description if you want to learn more. It's on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. And would you like to see more content like this? If so, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and leave me a comment below and let me know that you'd like to see more videos like this. And while you're there, what are your tips for finding uncrowded camping spots? Well, thanks for joining this video, everybody. We'll catch you in the next one.